After you've set up your FS230 hydrocarbon meter, you're going to want to set up the oil table. Before you get started, go up to where it says View Process Values. And check to see if you have a live temperature. In this case, I know we don't have a live temperature because it's reading the 68 degree default when no temperature sensor is set up. Go back to Device, Setup, Inputs and Outputs, and find the channel that you've wired the RTD. In this case, it says disabled. Let's switch it to medium temperature RTD. Make sure that it's a 1000 ohm RTD, if that's what we've supplied for you. 4 wire, and you can even set the wire resistance. I'm going to leave it set to 0. Next, I'm going to transfer this information to the meter. Then I'll close. Then I'll go back and I'll view the process values again. And there, now I have a live temperature. Next, I'll switch tabs to Process Values 2. And I'm going to write down my liquid N. My liquid N, in this case, with the liquid flowing inside the pipe, is 1069. The liquid N is the speed of sound of the liquid corrected to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. The customer has told me that their API base or standard is actually 90 and not 86. Let's close this. Now, I made this calculator where I could put in my measured liquid N and pick the product that it is, jet, put in the API, I think I said it was 90, and it'll calculate my reference density, which is in kilograms per cubic meter. And it'll also pick from a table what coefficients should get entered into my table. What I like to do for each liquid is represent it by 2 points. One a little bit below my liquid N and another a little bit higher than my liquid N. And the calculator also decides that for you as well. We'll come back to this in a minute, but let's go back to the PDM. The oil table is not in an obvious place. You have to go to Operation, Oil Table Settings. And you end up with a blank table, so you have to refresh the oil table values with this button. Process will take about 1 minute. When this says 100% red, you can close this. And here is my oil table values. Because 1069, which was my liquidant that I wrote down earlier, is towards the bottom end of the table. I'm going to go ahead and use entry number 1 and entry number 2 and change them accordingly. So I'm going to click Edit the Oil Table Values. It's for a single line. It says 11, but we want 1. We can click OK. Now, if you remember from my spreadsheet calculator, the first liquidant we were going to use was 1067. We're going to leave it as identifier number 1. It calculated this number, 636.9, and it gave us these K0 and K1 coefficients. And let's go back to the calculator sheet. This was the first point, the low point. This was the density, K0, K1. And that's what's been entered here. Now, the only thing we don't have is the viscosity. And typically we get this from the customer. And I'll show you what we need to ask the customer, but first I'll hit apply. Now, if you look at the first line, these are the numbers that we have written in. And I just checked the meter and they're already inside the meter as well. Now let's edit line number 2. And the only thing that's going to change here is the higher point. The rest of this information will remain the same. Okay, so now I've made those changes and I can apply them. And just to refresh your memory, here are the values that we entered, and then we can hit apply. Okay, so now this first liquid is entered, but what about the viscosity? I'm going to close this. Actually, I didn't need to close it. The information that I needed was already on this page. If you look at reference temperature 1 and reference temperature 2, that's what's going to get entered in back on this screen. The oil reference viscosity at temperature 1, whatever the customer tells you it is. The oil reference viscosity at temperature 2. So temperature 1, 32. Temperature 2, 104. Whatever those happen to be, we hit apply. And incidentally, if those reference temperatures don't work for the customer, they're changeable. You can make them 1 and 2, anything you want. Reference temperature 3, I should mention, is the temperature that we correct the sound speed to when we report liquidant. So again, liquidant is just the sound speed of the liquid corrected to 60 degrees Fahrenheit. And if you have a pressure input, which has a very negligible impact on the liquidant, but if you did have a pressure input, it will also correct it back to atmospheric pressure, or 14.7. there's just one more step, and it's this: back up the oil table values. And like it says, it backs up the complete oil table in the persistent memory. So let's do that. We'll hit OK. And that's it. So we've just edited our first liquid, which consisted of 2 points of 1067 to 1071. And that represents the liquid end that we measured, which was in the middle of that, which was 1069. And we do 2 points to account for any meandering based on temperature errors or other factors. This way we're always reading the correct density per liquid. And that's it. One other thing. If you're going to save this by hitting the save button, make sure you upload the values that we sent to the meter with this button. Hit start. Finished. I can hit close. Now I can hit save. So this save project will now represent the latest changes made to the meter. Or if I want to export this so that I can actually move this in between PCs, if I hit start, that's finished. Close. And now if I check it with import, so let's say we're out in the field and we've already transferred this file. I'm going to show you the file. Okay, and if I sort by the timestamp, it's going to be this one here. And so we could put this onto another laptop, or I could leave it on this one and bring it out to the field to another meter and transfer this information over. Okay, that's it.